Welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. My name is Nick Noel, and I am your host for the next and continuing time. That's a phrase that I'm gonna keep using. And just like last week, I am joined by several people, not just one person, as is usually the case. And I will go in anti-clockwise fashion. Some people say counterclockwise, but those people are communists.
Anti-capitalist.
Yeah, there it is. So I'm going to go in counterclockwise.
I was just about to say, though, when you said anti-clockwise, it made me think of Antifa. So really, who are these people?
They're just a bunch of fun-loving folks. And that's in order of how I perceive it, to make it less confusing, even though it has now taken me 2.5 minutes to do this. So starting with Ron, the guy with a beard, Stratton. That's your nickname, right?
Yeah, that works.
Even though Dane also has a beard.
Semantics.
That's the name of my beard.
What? Introduce yourself, Ron. What do you do? What's your thing?
What's my thing? Let's see. I am a viewer of Advent Children, a movie that makes little to no sense if you've never played a Final Fantasy game. It makes very little sense if you have played a Final Fantasy game. And I enjoyed watching it. Or did I? We'll find out.
And then from my perspective, right below Ron, he's our video editor and guy with glasses, Dane.
I think we're all wearing glasses.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking, you're not picking
Man with
best.
glasses number 2.
I had these in my head what these were going to be, and then they're just out the window.
This
You're
would
Dane,
be
right?
the worst, Guess Who board.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm Dane. I got nothing. Yep.
Yeah.
Great
no,
game.
I should start over, but I'm not going to.
No.
We
just
got
power
this
through.
And then finally, in the last little box, they are our social media coordinator and sometimes graphic designer and all around good person, Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I play Kingdom Hearts, so Advent Children made perfect sense to me.
So we've alluded to it, but I'm just going to come out right and say it. We are talking about Advent Children. Final Fantasy VII movie sequel to the game, which I'm sure has happened before, but I've never heard of it. And this is, again, not necessarily an adaptation of a game, but kind of a continuation in a different format. So all of our Final Fantasy movies, the 2 of them we're talking about, have been a little bit of a divergent from our established format. For those who don't know, that established format is we talk about film adaptations of video games. So these are, at the very least, tangentially related, and at the very most, almost exactly the same thing. You may be hearing some dogs, and that's in your head. There aren't any. I don't know why you're hearing them. That'd be weird. Maybe you should think about that.
I'm sorry, is gaslighting a regular part of this program?
Of course.
That's segment 0.
Segment 0. Oh, yeah.
It's run by 2 white guys, Aaron. Of course it is.
Oh, my God.
Whoa!
There's one question I had from our last episode that I wanted to follow up with Ron about. At the very beginning, you started assigning us different classes based on Final Fantasy, and I don't think you got a chance to finish, and it's been burning me up inside. And so I'm wondering,
Aaron took the
who do
reins,
you think
and
we should be?
I was thinking Dane would be a rogue for sure.
Okay.
and I wasn't sure where to put you in that list, because there's typically like the hero character, like there's just the person that you follow. There's the fighter type, which tends to be like if in Final Fantasy you might stick with a fighter. I don't know. I used to like having like two blue mages, a fighter and a white mage. I always thought that was good. So I could see you being a blue mage as well. And since you're wearing this hat now, all I can say is blue mage.
What's the blue mage? Is that like the person you like forget to invite to parties?
Aaron, help me with this one, because I bring it up, but I'm also like, because the red mage could kind of use both, right? What was the
red mage can kind of use both. So there's like two schools of magic, kind of. Well, three kind of schools of magic. There was healing, there was debuffs, and then there was elemental magic.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the blue mage was, because I never had a blue mage on my party. I would do a red mage or a white mage because I really desperately needed healing. But a black mage did the debuffs, so it'd be poisoning an enemy or like blinding them with magic.
So I hope I'm not talking out of my butt here. And what I'm seeing is the blue mage, but that was actually the black mage. But I feel like we had a red mage and a blue mage in some of the Final Fantasies.
It probably got switched around. That's the one that I remember.
Yeah. According to the Final Fantasy fandom wiki, the blue mage focus on blue magic, a special subset of magic that uses attacks otherwise exclusive to enemies.
Okay.
And their interests were Eiffel 65 music, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just about to say, if at any point they turned green, they would die.
Okay. In Magic the Gathering, blue is islands. Does that help? It also deals with counter spells and the like. So let's just talk about Magic the Gathering. That's a thing I know about.
I don't. So then we're reversing roles. Instead of knowing about Final Fantasy and this movie entirely, I'll just take a set. I'll just sit back. It's fine.
This would be better, because then it would just be a podcast where I'm talking to you instead of having to listen to you like a jerk. Ugh, okay. So with that, we're gonna go into our first segment where we kind of just chat about the movie or whatever. Going to go into our feature presentation. And we're there now. The miracle of editing.
Where am I?
What's happening? Oh my god. So, guys, folks, people, friends, what is this movie and why does it exist and what the fuck is happening? I don't get it.
Final Fantasy Advent
The only
Children.
thing I know is that I can see why it is popular, because everybody in this looks like a straight up sexy boy, and so that's nice.
Oh, that's just Final. That's just like
that's just Final Fantasy.
That's Square Enix.
Wait till you see Final Fantasy 15. You basically play as a boy band, and you're all heartthrobs, and you're pushing a car for a long time.
Sid is a woman in that.
That's right.
Yeah.
What a phrase that, devoid of context, sounds insane.
Sid is a woman in that one.
The blue mage does blue magic.
Advent Children is a love letter to Final Fantasy
speak
VII
and spell.
fan.
That's just Dane's phrases. Sorry,
that would be good. No,
okay, so what is Advent Children? What's happening in it? Who are the Advent Children? Why do I keep wanting to say Advent Calendar?
Advent Calendar would be an awesome offshoot. Advent Children is a direct continuation to the storyline of 7. It's made for the fans, by fans, and it does not care about introducing you to this world at all. It's a direct continuation on from the ending of Final Fantasy VII, and it follows our characters 2 years after the incidents of Final Fantasy VII. And in this world, even though they've defeated Sephiroth, who basically hated humankind. Yeah, spoiler alert, but he is the main threat of 7. and his objective was to basically wipe the earth of civilization and use it as a vessel to explore space. Like that was, he was going to go, he was going to be Genova. Again, this, go to Wiki. There's a lot of story in 7 involved here. But basically, he's thwarted. But the aftermath of him being killed is now there is this poison infecting people on Earth. And it's this reaction to what the media is blaming on, like the life source of the, no one's really putting the blame on Sephiroth, but they're blaming this life force that we've had for 40 years, the Mako energy everyone's been exposed to for like 40 years.
It seems odd because if ever there was a scapegoat, it's crazy half god who tried to destroy the Earth and use it as a basically.
But that's why he's the scapegoat. They don't want to admit that he might be back. You know, what's it called? I'm already blanking this as I started talking. What was the sickness called? It started with a G.
Geostigma.
The geostigma is infecting everyone, and it's infected our protagonist, Cloud, who's always. My first bummer with this movie is it undoes a lot of character development with him because he's been the kind of I'm not going to talk to you guys. I'm the lone gunman. You know, I'm a rebel. I don't care about friends. And the arc you follow in 7 is he becomes a part of a team and a family, and he learns to work together. This kind of reboots him back to square one, and that's where there might be a rift depending on which versions we've watched. But in the complete cut of Advent Children, they've reworked the scenes to make it make more sense that he basically went into hiding and he went on a quest to find a cure to the geostigma because he lives with these orphans and cares about them. But the movie starts with him coming back to the city. He's been ignoring Tifa and everyone. All of his friends essentially go right to voicemail on his phone because he is so emo. And
on his legally not Razor.
Legally not a Razor phone. But at the same time, see right away, and Nick touched on this too, because it is the first flaw is we do 498 years earlier because we start with Red 13 and his pack running through the reclaimed Earth, which is how Final Fantasy VII ended. You know, the Mako reactors have been taken offline and the Earth has come back and there's green everywhere and yay.
What if then we immediately get podcast? It's just Ron, the four of us watching Ron for an hour and a half.
I'll try to.
You've said so many words that make no sense. Is it Red 13? What's that?
So Red 13 is the lion dog.
Okay.
The one you were surprised that could talk.
He's the one who can talk. Okay. But doesn't talk until the end of the movie?
because he's too cool to talk. But also
he
part
only
of
talks
it
every once in a while.
Yeah.
So he's the opposite of me. Okay. Because I'm too nervous not to talk. I get it. Okay. Got to keep that straight.
So
that's Red 13, even though he's is he like 1,000 years old or something, or because he's he lives to be over 500 something years old, because at the end of Final Fantasy VII, it cuts to 498 years later, and it's him running, and so you just know that. He was experimented on, and Shinra did a bunch of stuff to him with Mako energy, I think, right? And then, so we don't really know what his full story is, but he can talk. And he's a dog. It was very confusing to me. Like, I felt they could have just cut that part. We didn't need to see the dogs running, and then 498 years earlier.
Well,
and then it is never referenced
I think it was
again.
just
we
like
never go back to it.
Yeah,
I think it was just paying homage. To how the game ended.
If we were to do something awful like Cinema Sins, and we did like dings for fan service, that's the first ding, and then there will be like 300 of them.
Yeah,
but
that'd be
annoying. Just for fans.
Why would we do that?
Yeah,
this whole movie was just for fans.
The only thing else I'll say before, I think you are a quarter through your recap at this point.
Right.
The only thing I'll say is it is very jarring to first 2 minutes, 498 years earlier, and then you wait another like 5 minutes, and then it's like, oh, by the way, 2 weeks earlier. And it's you can't do a time jump within a time jump. That's horrible.
Yeah, that bugged me too.
The Prestige did that all the time, and it really messes with your head.
So the little scene they thought was important of like him with Rufus, but they should have just dropped that and started with the helicopter approaching the volcano. Like that would have just been
Side note,
great.
This is
but then they would have had to go. Sorry.
this is a universe with like a talking dog lion and magic orbs that you can put into your body, and
Don't forget the talking cat.
And a talking cat,
A talking cat?
monsters that you can summon, and the laws of physics don't exist in this universe, but somehow they have the exact same like Black Hawk helicopters as our reality. Like it was designed just independently in these different universes. This exact helicopter exists.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever read The Dark Tower, Dane?
No.
Okay.
Oh, I love The Dark Tower.
In the Dark Tower series, throughout all universes are anchored by this Dark Tower. It is the center. It is across all the multiverses. It crosses all planes. That's what Black Hawk helicopters actually are.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
That makes sense.
That
A
and
dark
Motorola
helicopter, if you
phones,
will.
apparently.
Yeah. Essentially,
so that explains that.
Yeah, essentially, Claude goes back to the city. He's trying to cure Geosigma, but was kind of unsuccessful in his finds. And then 3 essentially Sephiroth clones are trying to find Genova, who they refer to as Mother. Genova is an ancient alien that came to Earth, and Shinra Corporation was using using Genova to like fuel their experiments.
So part of the soldier program too, essentially.
Yeah, these 3 people.
Is that why they called Cloud like their brother? Because he was a part of the soldier program. Was he a part of the soldier program?
He was, but also too, like Cloud has this like connection with Sephiroth. So like Kadaj and his gang view Cloud as Sephiroth essentially, because everyone like was under the same thing. Sephiroth was from the village that Cloud was from.
Can
growing
anyone
up.
explain to me why I feel like I'm transported to backstage during our 6th grade production of Oliver right now, when I just hear like, so anyway, Sephiroth, he was like, yep, there I am right there. There's some people doodling in their notebooks and talking about Final Fantasy.
A lot of the conflict come from Kadaj, which is the leader of the 3 Sephiroth clone dudes, stealing children and making them drink contaminated water to become super soldiers, or
is this not QAnon?
Either super soldiers or like some kind of conduit for energy, and also to take back Genova to bring Sephiroth back, because that's the only way to bring Sephiroth back and complete Sephiroth's mission is by finding Genova. And Cloud and his friends stop them and save the day, essentially. And Cloud becomes a family again after he's finally free of his PTSD involving Sephiroth.
People didn't know this, but the way to get over PTSD is to fight more. So
is to literally fight an actual physical version of your PTSD.
Yeah.
That's what the Rambo movies taught me.
I mean, that's kind of what Star Wars is about, so I guess maybe I should shut up.
I just have flashbacks to Rise of Skywalker, and that movie upsets me still.
How big of a deal is Sephiroth in this universe? Like, is he someone that a normal person would recognize? Like, hey, that guy almost destroyed everything.
He was like, so originally he was like a hero that people would look up to because he was the best soldier. And then,
he basically has a nervous, he has a mental breakdown, right, Aaron, when he discovers Genova? Because that's the kind of, he's on a mission with Cloud. Well, we think it's Cloud. The whole Zack thing is a whole nother
that one
story.
is really,
convoluted. But essentially Sephiroth is on a mission, and they end up deep underground in a lab, and they discover Genova. And Sephiroth finds out he's just this experiment, and he kind of goes ape shit and isn't the same after that.
He's
so he goes from being a hero
I was created as an experiment. Like, I am not valued as a human, therefore.
Yeah, so he just
fuck
hates
everyone that
everything
did this
after
to
that.
me.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure where the one-winged angel thing comes in, but it's a kick-ass song.
Sephiroth.
He has one wing.
I didn't realize, for some reason, I didn't realize that that's just how he rolls. He's just always got one wing. I thought it was because he was like a transmuted version of himself, so he only had half of his normal amount of wings.
Yeah, like the soundtrack literally refers to him as the one-winged angel in Final Fantasy VII, and I'm not sure. That's lost on me. Despite loving these games, I'm more of a materia guy, so the whole lore of that I'm not quite sure what's going on with. It's a cool boss fight, though.
Okay, so that explains the whole movie.
Good night. Credits.
So I mean, it does. It half ends when they bring Sephiroth back, and then you got to fight some other people again. Basically, now I'm taking over the recap.
I want to know about that because, the reason why I ask about how recognizable Sephiroth is that in the sense of like just a normal person, if they know who he is and what happened, like would not normal people like on the street be like, there are 3 Sephiroths like doing some shit?
Well, they wouldn't know that he was Sephiroth. When I say that they're Sephiroth clones, is they're from the same experimentation as Sephiroth.
But like that's what I mean. Like they look, they
kind of do. They have the same kind of like complexion and eyes and like hair color,
and the same like uniform almost.
Yeah. But like much the same way we could say like Dane looks like Rivers Cuomo doesn't mean that Dane is actually Rivers Cuomo.
Oh my.
We didn't even plan that. That was amazing. I like everything about that.
But also too, like the city, I forget what the fucking name of the city is, like heavily influenced by media, and like Shinra Corporation owns the media and essentially controls what information is
most of the
out.
People don't know what the hell's going on.
They don't know what the hell is going on. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they can even tell you what a chocobo is.
Which is awful because they're so cute and their theme song is so good.
And I love chocobo racing gold chocobos. That's most of what I did in that game.
Okay. Listen, there's no chocobos in this movie. We'll talk about the game later. God damn.
Oh yeah. Oh, I
There's
forgot.
a statue on his desk of a gold chocobo. So
I never
the one kid's
factored.
got a Moogle stuff.
I never factored in the lack of chocobos into my rating. So if you guys want to talk for a second, I have to figure out what the new rating is for this movie because of the lack of chocobos.
Okay, so yeah, to me, like, to start out with, this movie does, like, I did a recap of the game. I've never played the game. Never played any Final Fantasy games. I am a bad person.
No, but I've been very curious what your interpretation of this movie is, though. Like, what did you think watching it?
It is very hard to follow. I am very glad that I watched the recap, or else I would have gotten nothing out of it. The only thing that I will say is, based on the recap, this kind of feels like a Ghostbusters 2 to me, in that they just reset to 0 and do the same thing. Like, they're just like, everybody's kind of the same. We got to fight the Sephiroth guy. Some people get killed or are injured, and then it's over, and everybody feels good about it. It seems like you're not going to win, but then you do win. I don't know if at the end of the game there's like a fake ending where then you have to fight somebody else. That feels like a very video gamey thing to do, though.
I feel like a final boss becoming another final boss is a staple of Final Fantasy, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Kefka had like a bunch of stages.
Yeah, they always have at least 2 or 3 stages. Sephiroth definitely did.
Like, it always reminds me of like when you're fighting, like in Star Fox, where you're like fighting that giant monkey thing or whatever, and he keeps exploding his face, and then a different like fiery face comes back. It's a faded memory. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it feels like you keep
I know
destroy
you're
him
right.
and then come back. Okay. Good.
One of his phases looked like the faceless glitch from Assassin's Creed. I remember that.
Yeah, it did.
So-
I like this movie, despite it being kind of a muddled mess.
What?
Again, it depends on which cut you watch. I really think the version that adds 26 minutes explains a lot of plot holes, while still being very Japanese. I mean, I just think culturally this movie wasn't really made for a Western audience. I think there's a lot of homages and stylistic choices that are very anime influenced and very, you know, if this wasn't your bag and you just watch this movie, you'd be like, why is everyone so pretty? Why are they flying? And how come physics don't matter? And it's got that kind of anime influence that, give or take, your mileage will vary, you know. But I think for what its purpose was, it's very good in the sense that it was made for people who wanted more from these characters, who love these characters. These characters mean a lot to a whole generation of gamers. And I think that those that it was made for got a lot out of this, even though I think it could have been a little more streamlined in a sense, just make more sense. You know, not necessarily exposition dumps, but a little more, this is what's happening. These guys are clones. You know, everything Aaron said in surmising that isn't necessarily portrayed on the screen very well. So if you're not paying a lot of attention, you're going to go, what is this? And again, the more you know about the subject matter, the more you're going to get out of it, I think.
I think it's hard because I don't get a strong sense of like anyone's place in the world or their motivations. Like I know you're supposed to have played the game, but even then it just,
that's the thing. This movie should work regardless. See, if it had done its job properly, you would get out of it your own interpretation and still have the movie make sense. You know, right away, that's a crutch that's not really forgivable in storytelling. Like you should be able to follow the plot and understand the character's motivations and just be able to get some joy out of knowing the character. And there needs to be layers to that. The fact that there's no layers at all, and if you don't know this, then that's on you. Mm-hmm. It's not really fair to a general audience, you know, which you could argue this wasn't made for a general audience, but still, for a movie
it was
to work,
really made as like a supplemental piece because something that when I was like looking up just some very, very basic like information about the movie, on the same day that this movie was released, they also released, Last Order Final Fantasy VII, which is with Sephiroth and Zack. So it was like a prequel essentially to Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
Where it's more of Zack's story and like background, because, you know, this was in a time where we didn't have Crisis Core yet, which further explored Zack's backstory. And so Zack is an integral character in in Final Fantasy VII, but pretty much only for like Cloud and Aerith. Like,
right.
All right. When I said a while ago, like really stupid inside scoop type thing, it was about Zack. The thing that it is that apparently the person or whoever was localizing Final Fantasy VII got to the part where they introduced Zack, and his name started with a Z, and he was just like, Zack, he's only in this for one bit, and didn't realize it was this massive thing that extended into all the lore whatsoever, like across the board. And so you have all these like Sephiroth, Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, Zachary. That's it. Just like,
I'm a deep cut.
I mean, I feel like Zachary is like same plane as like Sid, or Jesse is one of the eco terrorists in the beginning of Seven, and I forget the rest of their names, but that's I don't know. Jesse was my favorite.
I like that Biggs is always in it, and oh my God, the other Star Wars guy. There's always a Biggs
Wedge.
Yeah.
Wedge. Yes. Oh my God. No, I take it back. I love Wedge.
Wedge is great.
Wedge is so good in the remake.
Oh, the remake. Oh, we'll talk about that. Yes.
but just so good in the remake. I love them so much.
My favorite part of the remake is fleshing those guys out. Anyway.
Yes, it was so good. I love that we fell in love with those characters. Sorry.
I feel
that's
no, this
talk.
is nice.
That's
I'm just
section
experiencing what everyone else experiences when I talk, so this is nice. I was wondering what everybody thought of kind of the style of the movie, to kind of like the animation style. You know, this gave me so much 90s nostalgia. Like, I know this is like 2004, but like just everything's like big and chunky and like
it rides that wave that Matrix Reloaded set into place. Like everything was about being cool, black leather, long flowing coats, giant glasses, swords, cell phones. Yeah. Seriously, I mean, that Matrix really had left that impact on like 12 years of movies afterwards, and this is right in there. You know, maybe I mean, they kind of inherently had that style anyway, but you know, so one could argue if this is in development at the same time, but it wears that inspiration on its sleeve, I think. And aesthetically, going from the last Final Fantasy movie to this, like directorially and cinematography wise, it really stands on its own. Yeah, very confident. Like there's a really, it's really well edited, despite hating the time jumping stuff. The pacing and the flow of things, the brief moments it'll freeze and let you see a character react to something that's happening in like hyper reality, and then letting it pull out again. Like the director is guiding your eye to everything he wants you to see, and I love when that's done as confidently as this is done. You know, it's a little silly when you have moments where people are lifting each other up, but again, I get at that point it's Jaws getting blown up. You know, I've been invested this whole time. Sure, yeah, I'm along for the ride. It's fun. It's magic. It's dance.
I feel like
whatever.
too, though, like compared to Spirits Within with Advent Children, with Spirits Within, you're going in with more of this is a movie that you're watching. Whereas Advent Children, you're like, this is an anime. Of course they're fucking jumping off and friendship is their power because it's anime.
You give it a lot more leeway for that. Yeah, you don't. This doesn't have the baggage that Spirits Within had, because Spirits Within is competing on a AAA real world, where this, you go into it like, okay, let's see this cool video game movie. You know, let's see this anime-esque adventure that's about to happen.
Weirdly, I think I liked the animation in this one a little bit more. And you know, it's probably more fluid. It's probably more traditional. I mean, they're not doing any mocap here.
Yeah, also too, they're not trying to really make it like real people, because it's stylized to fit that world more, whereas they're not trying to mimic real actual humans, I guess. Yeah. Because everyone's got giant fucking feet and like a million belts.
I adore. Granted, it's not, you know, there's a misogynistic, like, there's a lot of problems with how Tifa can be represented, but I love her as a character because she's this beautiful, you know, sex symbol, but she's a badass. She's a really good fighter. I mean, she is almost a tank in a sense of how good she can fight.
Literally made a note. I was like, damn, Tifa is so cool.
Yeah, just watching her fight in this is great, and I love it because it carries over to the remake as well. Like her fighting style in that is really good.
Her fighting style is so smooth in the remake. It's so fun.
So Final Fantasy is turn-based, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to BRB just 1 second. You guys can keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. But in the remake, they took away that turn-based and they made it more of like you can switch in between the characters and fight as them, but they did it more fluid, similar to kind of how they did for Kingdom Hearts.
I was going to say, that's like a Kingdom Hearts thing, isn't it? So I haven't played
which they did it in Crisis Core 2, right?
Where Crisis Core was like that.
Yeah.
I was mentioning it because I think it's interesting that you know, given that this is more animated and you can actually see the fluidity of people moving then and reacting to each other kind of in real time, I imagine that was kind of interesting when up until that point the game was all just like turn-based, and I know you're supposed to think that it's all happening kind of instantaneously, but it's not, you know. It's one person runs up and hits them with a sword, and they're like,
my God, look at how Final Fantasy VII was represented. It's very close to the Super Nintendo games, you have these blocky, deformed, dwarfish little characters, but you also have these really interesting little animated sequences, and then you also have gorgeous pre-rendered FMVs that were kind of going for this style way ahead of its time, you know. So people really went gaga for
Mm-hmm.
those. So this was a big deal when it came out because it was seeing your characters brought to life for the first time.
I
You
also,
know,
again, to bring it back to Dungeons and Dragons, because I can't go an episode without talking about Dungeons and Dragons. It's like a round is supposed to be 6 seconds, but like depending on how many people you have in your crew, it takes a lot longer. It takes like a few minutes to get through just one round of combat. So a lot of it was left up to imagination. So the original Final Fantasy had a really good, I feel like, in between balance of having those animations, but also taking its time and like letting you, think of what you're going to do, which is why it's just always seems cooler in your head.
yeah.
I also like, you can see a lot of like this exaggeration that comes from anime, the giant swords, the huge guns, the facial expressions, even, to kind of like more about the feeling of a thing rather than the conveying the feeling of a thing through the way it's stylized, rather than the strict naturalistic interpretation that Western animation tends to rely more on. And you can see that, I think, in a lot of other video games. Like, I was thinking of BioShock, like how the style of that is so kind of exaggerated, and you could see BioShock being a Japanese product. And I'm sure I'm not exactly sure I can't remember who the publishers are right now, but definitely whoever made it has played these kinds of games before, I would imagine. And just in that, like, they're not afraid to make something not make sense because it looks cool. Like the Big Daddies in that, like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody make that?
Yeah, but it looks
stupid?
cool. That's where I go with this. Like, I don't want to discredit it by saying it's style over substance, because there is some.
I don't mean that. I mean, the substance is translated through the style in a much more and this is just my interpretation. I don't mean like it looks cool and you feel nothing. What I mean is they translate your feelings into the physical manifestation of the world, rather than an interpretation that you have to go through the acting, not solely through the acting and voices and facial expressions of the characters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it. Also, it was pretty badass when Cloud like jumped on Sephiroth and like dragged his sword behind him and like started exploding.
I was gonna say, the movie's got problems, sure, but like that third act is strong as hell. They're fighting their own summon. Bahuma is something that they have the materia for. It's their materia used against them, so they're fighting a friend,
we all
essentially. Yeah, but you start with this huge creature fight. You've got fights happening on the ground. You have this chase on the highway, fighting the twins. Then you face off with Sephiroth. I mean, it's bam, bam, bam.
Just want to say one thing I noticed is like when the summon just destroys this town square, and everyone it's when every character in the game is showing up like, and I'm also here.
Yeah.
And there's an aerial shot of the summon, like in where the town square is, and it's ruined, and there's still like a bunch of people just in the square, and it's like, why haven't you left? Like, it's
Run
still
away.
And
I know
then,
you
like,
might be used to this, but get the hell out of there.
and then there's another shot later in that fight in which the summon is like flying around, and it's an aerial shot again, looking down, and you see that town square in the background, and it's still like filled with people. I'm like, go home, dude. What?
Like,
Listen,
the
Dane,
motorcycle. I was gonna say the motorcycle chase directly after that fight too, when Kadaj has Genova's head, and they're like going through these packed busy streets, and people are just like walking to work, like like
Do you not
like they
see
didn't
the
know what
demon
was
there?
happening 20 minutes away.
Folks,
That's a them problem.
everyone, people are going to be killed by summons. That's just part of life, okay?
It's
We're not
part of
going to
life
shut down the
in
economy
Midgar.
just
If I don't-
because there happens to be a little extra danger. That's ridiculous.
I'm gonna get an earful if I don't get to Dunkin' and make this cold brew for you guys. So all right, okay, it's getting done.
Listen, it's mostly the elderly who are dying anyway, so it's not a big deal.
The scene introducing all the party members, though, like I'm 39 and I still got goosebumps at that. Like that's when Barrett comes in and his gun fires up.
Can we also talk about fashion icon Barrett? Did you see his mesh shirt? Fuck awesome. Yeah, Barrett.
Oh, look.
Barrett's so cool. I fucking love Barrett.
Yeah. So the whole cast is great. I think that party is really, really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
They have the motorcycle chase, and the highway just appears to go through like 30 miles of just industrial scaffolding. Like that's the scaffolding.
Yeah, that's
district.
just kind of how it is.
That's where they keep the scaffolding when they're not using it. What do you expect them to do?
Yeah, like the road, like
this guy.
Yeah, like the
you can't take it down. There's summons that destroy the city regularly, I guess.
Well, also too, like in 7, a literal district fell from the sky.
Fair.
So there's going to be some yeah. I mean, think about how long it fucking takes them to work on like I-75. Like they still have razors. Like it's going to take years to fix those roads.
Or the new Hudson site building that has been building for like 6 years and is still, I think at this point it's a foundation.
There's a couple levels now, but barely above a foundation.
All right, everyone. So this has been Detroit Construction Week.
We didn't even talk about the villages.
Is there like infrastructure in place? Or can just anyone just summon in the middle of a crowd? It's like
you need materia to do it.
You need materia to do it. Yep.
And I remember like a whole part of, especially like I don't remember if this was a whole part in like the original 7, but in the remake of 7, you had to like go through training in order to even use the summon properly.
Yeah, that's cool.
The founders of Midgard knew what they were doing. You don't want to have materia in the hands of the government. You need to have it in the people in order to combat the blood to combat
materia is what the Second Amendment means.
Yeah, like this is their God-given right to summon a giant monster in the middle of the city square.
It said I could have bare arms.
The means of materia belong to the people.
Barrett's gun arm, sure.
Yep.
All right, everyone. So what do you want to rate this movie out of
you do like Mako reactors?
Yeah, out of Mako reactors. Let's go out of 10, I guess.
Okay. I give it an 8.
We are gonna have some wildly different ratings.
Yeah. I give it an 8. Sure, it's not aged well. The graphics on the game actually probably surpassed this render on multiple levels. But it's true. Like the PS5 one I'm talking about, like looks incredible. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was directed really well for what it was. I enjoyed watching it again. It wasn't boring, and it was a good time. I liked it a lot. I got not much more to say. 8 out of 10.
Aaron?
I'm gonna give it 7 out of 10. I would have rated it a little bit higher, but I was trying to like not have my nostalgia affect it as much because
my nostalgia heavily affected mine.
This was a movie that like really heavily influenced me in the 7th grade, where a friend and I would like rent this movie back to back to back every weekend and just like watch it over and over because it was the coolest thing ever to us. Even though like both of us had never played the game because neither of us had a PlayStation 1.
How did you understand what was happening?
I told you I play Kingdom Hearts. I get these things.
I thought that was a
Tetsuya
joke.
Nomura and I speak the same language.
No, well, I didn't think it was a joke that you played Kingdom Hearts. I thought that.
Oh no, it was a joke. But also there is not a Kingdom Hearts like breakdown video that is less than half an hour.
Okay, that's fine.
But anyway, I'm giving it a 7 because technically it was really cool. What bothered me the most about the animation was pretty much only that like everyone's individual hair follicles you could see. So like in one of Cloud's spikes, there was maybe like 8 pieces of hair that made it up, and that was because you could see them individually. that's like extremely nitpicky, but something that like I definitely didn't notice when I watched it this a million times in 7th grade. And like as far as story goes, like yes, it's going to be really hard for people who haven't played the game or don't know the lore at all. But it was a really fun fucking time.
Dane, why
Sorry,
don't you take it away?
Yeah,
I
what's
had to
happening?
take the headphones out because my phone was like, no, we're gonna die soon. So now it's on the charger instead of on the headphones because that's a choice that I have to make for some reason. And so I had to move it so it's on the thing. So I need to keep this for that mic. Anyway, I would say, don't need this then. I would say, I don't know, I have mixed feelings because I guess if I had to choose, I'm going to go with 5 out of 10 because I admit that I can't really get past the fact that I played this game and that I watched a summary of what happened before watching this, and I was still like, what the hell is happening? And that was hard for me to distance. But there were things in it that I really liked. And I think a lot of it, yeah, I think at its core, I think any of my complaints about it, for the most part, are just that it's not able to be something that stands on its own. But that's also, it wasn't made to be something that stands on its own. So I have mixed feelings on that. So just on my personal opinion on it, I guess I'm just 5 out of 10 right now. But yeah, there are things I liked, things I didn't like. The bioluminescent trees in that forest were awesome, and I want to know if we have the technology to do that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Okay, I probably shouldn't be the one ending this, but I will be. So I have to acknowledge that this seems to be, hold a place in a lot of people's hearts. It definitely seems to be something that people grew up with, or at least have a lot of nostalgia for at various points. And so, but I can only like base my reaction on how much I enjoyed watching it, and it's a 2-hour movie, and it took me 3 days. So, 2 out of 10.
That's exactly what I thought you were going to give it. When you were like, wait, the dog can talk? I was like, yeah, this isn't meant for me. Which is totally fair. Which
Listen,
is, again,
it would have been a 10 out of 10 if that dog had talked just twice more. That's it. Like, that's all I needed. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up segment 1, the first segment.
wow. That's not fast.
And we've covered a lot of ground in this first segment, though. So we're going to go to our next segment and touch on our appreciation and experience with the game itself, Final Fantasy VII in the arcade.
My leg fell asleep.
Oh no.
My choice to sit on it. There we go.
Okay, so you have all played this game at various points. I have heard a lot of, at the time that I was in middle school, a lot of middle schoolers talking about this game, and a lot of a fair amount of what I'm gonna affectionately call anime girls, kind of crying and just finding Sephiroth to be just so hot. So that's my experience with it. It's very limited. So what are you all done? What's your
man, I mean, I was a high school dropout, so I spent a lot
was
of time
it because of this game? Is that why
You dropped out to play Final Fantasy VII exclusively? Did anybody watch that down the rabbit hole video about the Final Fantasy house that I sent you?
No, I wanted to.
Oh my God, Ron, please.
I will watch it when we're done with this. I'm mad I didn't get to it before we recorded, but I will watch it. Because yeah, I mean, at the time I had the attention span to devote to games. Right now, and you all know me, I'm terrible with it. I'd buy games I'd never even install. But at that time, I religiously played Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 2. I did everything you could do. I found game-breaking bugs in Resident Evil 2. I played the living hell out of that game. And Final Fantasy VII was the only game where I would fall asleep playing it and wake up holding the controller and see the timer going and just like keep playing. Like I would sleep in this beanbag chair in my room playing that game.
Went into a coma.
Yeah, pretty much. My clock maxed out at 99.99, so I have no idea how long I played that game for, but I did everything you could.
Playing though, if you're sleeping for 6 hours. How many times did you
fall asleep?
Yeah, the sleeping probably brought that into higher numbers, but I did play it a lot.
I know Jake's Steam account. If you look at like, there is something like I think it's like Warhammer or something, but he has a game on there that is like 1,000+ hours, and it's because he has fallen asleep repeatedly while it's been up.
Warhammer is a game you fall asleep playing. As somebody who absorbs Warhammer knowledge through osmosis because their partner really likes Warhammer, no, that fucking takes hours. An actual game of Warhammer, if you don't rush it at all whatsoever, can go on for days.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Nobody got time for that.
It's because it's also ridiculously expensive too. That's why like the games on Steam and everything else are more accessible than like buying all of these figures. That's a rant for not this game though. For not.
My story is short. I played the hell out of this game. I loved it. I think. But the best thing about it right now is the current remake, the Final Fantasy VII that we got in chapters now. So we've only basically out of the 30-40 hour experience of the original game. I don't know how maybe 5 or 6 hours you're in that opening section of Midgard. Then you kind of go out into the world, and that was mind blowing as a kid because you think the whole game looks a certain way, and then you leave Midgard and you go out into the world, and it opens up to the world map for the first time, and you realize there's this whole planet to explore, and I thought that was really cool. This whole PS5 game is just that opening section, but it's so expanded on. It's almost like 20-25 hours or so there's a lot more to do, so we're going to get that in pieces. We'll get a part 2 and hopefully a part 3, but it's just great. It's updated the combat style like Aaron touched on. It's more action focused, so there's a turn-based element, but at the whole time you're playing, the AI is controlling your partners, and you're doing so you can make decisions, and it's kind of a really cool effect because you can pause it and go through and make turn-based decisions on your actions, and it'll catch explosions in midair and there's particles everywhere, and then you resume real time and you'll make those choices and whatnot. But it's just it brought it to this 4K amazing HD modern equivalent, but it updates all the combat and all the story elements that I'd be hard pressed to find a fan of the original game that doesn't love what they did with the remake, and I'm loving that whole bunch.
So I've heard periodically there are these people who stay in their apartments or their rooms for days and days and days, and eventually people realize that they've died because they've just been playing video games the whole time without taking in any nutrients. So it's nice to know that you were almost one of them, I guess.
I'm taking this personally so far.
Ron, this is our afterlife. This is actually a part of your afterlife. Now that you've heard this truth, you can move on.
Yeah, your life has
turned into a blue nervous system ghost.
Blue nervous system ghost.
Float away.
You're at 99.99 for your life, unfortunately. So it's just
done all you can do
because we care.
Yeah.
No, that's what pisses me off about.
Nick is the ghost of your future. Dane is the ghost of your past. Probably the way around. This is going.
But no, they've released Final Fantasy VII a couple of times on like your cell phone, which is crazy to me, and like the Switch. And at any time you can click the sticks and turn on God mode, and then max out all your stats to 9999. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? Like, I think that's that breaks the game. It's really weird that they would just make that a feature. But
I did that when I played it the last time, and the reason was because I was 30 years old and had a job, and was like, I don't want to grind.
No, that's fine. But I'm not playing it for the story at that point. I'm playing it because I want to grind the materia and stuff. So I just think it's. I guess
It's
my
different.
takeaway
You
It's
from
pick
that-
different
the
for-
weirdest things to latch on. It's like, I'm not playing it for the story or the game. I just want to grind. I'd
It's
throw that
different.
shit in the trash. Who cares?
for this
So-
game, it makes sense. I don't know.
I guess, well, it's all depending on like gameplay. Some people aren't into the grind. So let's say, for example, this doesn't really fit into Final Fantasy, but it's a game where you can grind to have a very different experience. Pokemon. You can grind in Pokemon. You can you can min-max as much as you want in that game. You can catch all these Pokemon until you get like the nature that you want or that shiny. Or you can just go from gym to gym to gym and, beat the game in like a few hours if you wanted, depending on how fast you go. Or you could literally make it a year-long experience just by simply battling and boosting up all of your stats and catching every single Pokemon. Or it's just a matter of gameplay. Some people like that completionist aspect. Some people would much rather just go through the story.
My favorite thing they ever did, I guess what I would rather have is a fast forward, because when I would play Final Fantasy 4 or 5 again, on an emulator, you could set turbo buttons. You would just fly through fights, and you get into a battle, and you can just beat it in like a second. And that part I enjoy.
And then, finally back to the mindless collecting of resources. Not enough of these battles.
So then, Ron, you want to just play Persona.
Pretty much.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
And again, it depends on the game. Like Final Fantasy VII, I genuinely enjoy that whole grind. I'm crazy. Like I love getting fire materia and making it maxed out. And all the materia in that works like Pokemon to me, at least. Like I want to collect them all and master every single one of them. I just think that's really fun. I get addicted to that. It has that I'm going to play for 10 more minutes quality. That's what makes Diablo 2 so good.
What is the materia let you? I feel like I'm opening up a bottle I don't want to go down, but
no, I kind of touched on it in the last one. I mean, there's so many things you can do. Like if you have a lightning material and you equip it into a slot in your armor, then you're resistant to lightning. If you put it in your sword, then your sword does elemental damage. So
what it sounds like is it helps you be better at fighting, which
Yes.
you want to skip over.
In every game but Final Fantasy VII. I love doing it in 7, but it's the older games, so I'd rather just skip the fighting because there's no point. I just want to be max level, but I want to semi-earn it.
Okay.
Like just making me level 99 sucks, but let me
feel like
fast
this
forward
makes
through that
sense to
process.
you, and I'm glad for it. That's all.
I think people will agree with me. A few of them.
Comment below if you agree with Ron.
Thanks, Mom.
Dane, did you have anything you wanted to say? Did
There
you?
was
feels like
an
you were
island.
caught. That we caught you on camera, even though you were voluntarily here.
Hello, internet.
Oh, what? Oh, you guys are in my room?
There was an island in Final Fantasy VI with dinosaurs on it, and they didn't exist anywhere else in the game. And that was kind of what I would do when I was younger, and being like, all right, I need to grind so I can kill dinosaurs. That's it.
Can someone grab a clip of that and send that out to any employer that Dane applies to? Because I think he would get the job immediately.
I'd hire him.
Yeah, I think that'd be
Yeah.
great. I just like that, like there was an island with dinosaurs, and I went to the island with dinosaurs so I could kill the dinosaurs. I think that pretty much sums up, our, at least my life.
Dane.
That's all I've ever wanted.
I got a little bit bigger goals because when I grind, the goal is to kill God. So I mean, I feel like
Which
that's
is also something you can do in these games.
yeah. I feel like that's just one step above dinosaurs.
which
There's
island-
literally dinosaurs and then God. Like there's so much space. Like there's not enough space in between because they're basically the same thing.
Which island has God on it?
All of them.
Oh. Well, according to Spirits Within, I guess. since we're all
Well,
connected.
it's more so underneath, yeah, but yeah.
Does that mean that God is lava? Is that what they're saying? We didn't get into it, but I feel like God is lava. He's got to be, right?
Now I
He's
want
gotta be? They've got to be.
well, so if we're bringing Final Fantasy into the real world,
Why wouldn't we be?
Gaia's the goddess of Earth.
Sure.
So
Lava.
I mean, yeah.
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 No, we're
but
saying the
now
same
I want like little like Christian holiday cards where it says God loves you, and it's just a picture of that flowing stream.
There we
Sounds
go.
good.
Dane is bugging out. Dane is gonna go nuts. I think it's just like, I didn't think it was possible, but we've been talking about Final Fantasy for too long.
Yeah, we're in the arcade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in the arcade. So what
Let's
other
wrap
Final?
it up.
Yeah.
What did you want to finish up?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, if we're pressed for content, which I don't think we are, like, I mean, I guess we're specifically talking about Final Fantasy VII. I think we touched on when we had our discussion about Spirits Within other Final Fantasy games that we played. So we probably don't.
But you've played the remaster, right? What do you think of it?
So I actually haven't played the remaster. I don't really buy a whole lot of video games, but that's mainly because of money. So a lot of my like gaming experiences comes from like Let's Plays on YouTube. Like I was one of those kids who got into Let's Plays very early on because I couldn't afford video games. And then my father, who could afford to buy me video games, was like, why do you watch other people play games? And it's like, oh, well, I can't because you're out constantly playing games. And then you don't buy me games, so this is what I must do. But anyway, so I watched Geek Remix stream through the 7 remake, and it was gorgeous because they really did like, they would pause to like take time, and they didn't talk over the dialogue, but they saved it for in between, and they're super funny. But they would like take time and pause to like go around to the environments and just take time to appreciate the craft that has gone into the making of Midgar, and like looking up and being able to see individual like pipes and things on the like upper sections, and it was just really cool.
You look at the scaffolding district.
Oh man, I tell you, that's why you get a PS5 is for that scaffolding. I tell you what,
it's honestly super beautiful. And like the part of where section 7 actually like falls, and then you get sunlight mixed with all the scaffolding and industry and stuff like that, it's actually super cool. But it was gorgeous. I mean, that's my experience, is watching somebody else play it, because I couldn't afford to play Final Fantasy myself.
And now you know.
And now I know.
Dane, is there anything you wanted to take us out on? We're just gonna stay on Dane for the next 15 minutes.
It's not an arcade segment bit, so.
Okay.
So it's a great segment out of the arcade segment.
Yeah.
Segue. Sorry.
Let's get the hell out of here and go into our next segment, which is the room for improvement. Okay, real quick, everyone. What is this movie missing besides a coherent plot, decent acting, and any sort of inroad for anyone who has no idea what's going on?
really, I would just lose that time jump at the beginning. And I mean,
everything
you
else
have to completely restructure the movie otherwise.
See,
like I don't know, like
you're going against me, because then it's like that means less Lion Dog, and because he's only in like a couple of scenes.
Go Lion Dog is fine, and then you go, 498 years earlier, and it's just that helicopter approaching that mountain instead of guy in a wheelchair, blah 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 blah. 2 weeks earlier, like that's that whole like pacing stumble. Like you hit a speed bump coming out of the gate.
So is that what you're talking about? Like, did both of you watch the 2 hour long version? Because in the minute and like 40 something version, it doesn't tell you 2 weeks later or 2 weeks earlier. It goes,
Oh, interesting.
It goes the beginning with Red running, and then 483 or 480 something years earlier. And then it cuts to, part of Shinra Corp going to with Rude and Reno going to the volcano.
So it does. Okay. So
you get the VO. You get the VO from Elena.
Right.
Sheng,
See,
and then
that's probably why that should have been cut out, because I bet so in the theatrical cut or the original cut, that's what they do. And the complete edition, they shoehorn this scene in, which I don't think works.
Yeah, no, it flows through really nicely. Like it feels like it doesn't feel like there's time skips. It feels like this is all happening within maybe like a couple of days. And the only reason you know it's a couple of days is because it actually like physically gets dark and then goes into the morning. And like the hour of 40-minute version flows very nicely. So I guess room for improvement. For the viewers specifically, how you can improve your experience is don't watch the 2 hour long version.
Yeah, it's tough because the 2 hour version kind of gives Cloud more of a backstory, which is important. But yeah, my biggest problem with it are the pacing issues. So I think maybe it is for the best just to watch that, because it's 26 minutes longer and a lot of it's just extended action scenes. But there's a couple of scenes that are just played out differently. Does it go into Cloud taking care of or caring about, what was the kid's name? Dimitri?
Denzel?
Yeah, so there's a lot of like Denzel meeting Cloud for the first time.
No, there wasn't that. It was literally like Denzel has always been here.
Okay, yeah, this has Denzel like escaping the wreckage of Avalanche attacking Midgar. So it's basically the plate falling and him ending up at the church and finding Cloud's bike and his cell phone and calling Seventh Heaven, and Tifa going, "Oh my God, Cloud, you're actually calling me." And it's like, "Who's Cloud?" And I don't know if he passes out there or what. Then Cloud comes and gets him and brings him to the orphanage. So there's lots of little things like that that kind of expand upon what Cloud's doing in the movie.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do that. It just it cuts to Denzel is in bed. Marlene is kind of like tending to him, like asking him questions, saying, it's gonna be okay. The phone rings and Tifa's like, "Oh, he's not here," and then goes to answer. And then gets a phone. On the other end is Cloud, and then we cut to Cloud for the first time, and he is standing looking over Midgar with the Buster Sword next to him in the ground. And he gets off the phone, and then he gets ambushed by Kadaj and his crew.
Okay, that's kind of the same pacing too here, but like later on, it does flashbacks to Denzel and Cloud that way.
Gotcha. So, yeah, there's no flashbacks.
Interesting. But yeah, I don't have any like room for improvement on this one. Would just be a totally different movie for me. I think I would structure it in a way that it wasn't alienating, so somebody doesn't go, "Wait, the dog talks." Like either do a better job of introducing the players earlier. I don't know. Like it's hard because I think if I were to attempt it, I would screw it up too, because there'd be a lot of exposition dumps and a lot of things the video game player would
so
already
there
know.
Was like a brief recap segment in the version that I watched. Was that in your version? There was a very brief recap segment that went into and that was also like right before we were introduced to Marlene. It was Marlene talking about essentially what happened in VII as a very brief overview.
Oh yeah, because they kind of show Sephiroth holding the Genova contraption and saying 2 years ago. Yeah, so that was in it. I guess not super thorough, but it does talk about the events of the game lead into this. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is that I just would have liked to have been more explicit about the characters' relationships. And I will also say, I don't know what it is. It's probably because I was watching it in Japanese and I don't speak Japanese, but I find it very hard to differentiate or to understand the emotion behind like what people are saying because I'm reading it, but the affect I'm not able to parse. Like I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
familiar with the language. I don't know how the words are usually inflected.
Yeah, that was a time where you
understand.
probably should have watched the dub.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even
I
see
did
that
find
as
it.
an option. Maybe I just missed it.
Sometimes it's not. Like, it wasn't an option for me, which sucks because I would have liked to watch the dub because I really like all the English voice actors that they used. But
Yeah,
there
it's
is
interesting
an English
seeing this.
version.
Subtitled one too.
Yeah. I think it's interesting seeing very feminine, masculine characters with incredibly deep voices. Like these guys are like, I love the guttural resonance of a Japanese villain. Like it's hard to match that with an English dub. It's just very. I can't do an impression without it being insensitive, but it's very cool. Like I just love it.
Design-wise, that is
Good choice.
purely a Tetsuya Nomura thing. Is making very beautiful people. Everyone is pretty for no good reason, but everyone is pretty.
And this is interesting too because it's very pretty, and it also goes to like a criticism Nick had of the last one, but I think it does it in a positive light because it's a very muted color tone. But it works in this one more so it's like there's this kind of bloom to everything. Like there's lots of light grays, but when it gets colorful, the colors are really nice. Like I don't know, it's. Aesthetically, this feels like the saturation's brought down a lot, but I think where it was muddy in the last one, it doesn't read that way here. Although it's doing the same thing, I think.
I agree. Yeah, it's not muddy. It's still muted, but it's not muddy.
Yeah, where the last one was
like
muddy. It tried to go for that muted look, and this was kind of it was ugly.
It almost makes the characters stand out a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
because they are. At least in my memory is they're more detailed, and it's kind of like the effect is they like put a black line or they went over the lines again to make the kind of characters stand out, where really it seems like what they did was make the background more muted so that they stood out a little bit more, which also makes it feel more like a video game, honestly. But it's trying to match the style of the game, might be my guess. Dane, you haven't said a lot. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I don't know what I would change. Maybe, and this might come off as blasphemous.
Get rid of Sephiroth.
What if there were dinosaurs?
Sorry. I asked you to talk and then I interrupted you. I'm sorry, Dane.
There's and again, this might be blasphemous. There's like an inconsistency among the music, and I don't mean that in a like the music's bad. There's quite a lot in this that I've been like, that's fucking cool. But also pinched harmonics will make me laugh every time. They're hilarious to me. Anytime the guitar's like, love that. It's hilarious. Every time I laugh. But like there's when Sephiroth is doing his villain monologue and explaining things, it's like this really dramatic, like haunting, scary music. And like halfway through, and nothing he's saying warrants this change, but halfway through it's like and it's just like wait, where did like nothing changed at all. And then there was
so
like
funny where it comes
like there was some other point, I forget what it was, but it was like it was when Cloud got stabbed, and it was supposed to be this dramatic and scary thing, but like the music sounded like this jaunty, whimsical from like a Bob Hope road trip movie. Like it was just like, what?
I started to question if bullets did anything in this universe because he gets shot in the face at one point and just kind of shrugs it off. I mean, granted, it hit his goggles, but those bullets didn't seem very effective. I'm thinking that gun was like a 22.
We all know that all swords have a very low caliber bullet, so that just makes sense.
I mean, yeah, the dude with the actual bullet or gun sword wasn't even in this one, so because he's an 8.
Gunblade.
Well, they had a gun knife at the very least. I saw some, maybe it wasn't in your cut, but there was somebody who had a gun that was also a knife of some kind. I saw it.
It was, I think, was it one of like the Sephiroth clones? Because I went from
Feel
like Gauntlet.
Yeah, there's the Gauntlet guy. The other one
Gauntlet
has two gun blades, and then
just the blade.
The two-pronged sword.
The two-pronged katana.
So you know what's cooler than a katana? Two katanas.
In Dimension 20's current season of Unsleeping City, there is a character who is a Moggoth named Cody, and he makes a deal with a lesser demon to get power because he thinks it's the most metal fucking thing, and
just power.
He just and he just signs the contract because it just sounds fucking cool and it's totally rad. But currently, spoilers for Unsleeping City season 2, I guess, but they're currently he was a big sword collector. So like his original sword was like a Buster Sword replica that he would use to fight with. But currently his sword is a composite of 3 different swords. So it's like a Holy Blade, Excalibur, and then like one more weapon. And it's like a fork sword that he has to roll every time to see if he gets to make a strength saving throw to pick it up. And then he has to attack with disadvantage because even though it's D&D, it's still the real world. Mm-hmm. And you can't lift up those weapons in the real world. You can't physically fight with those. So he has disadvantage imposed on him every time he uses those weapons.
Wow.
Weird.
It's hilarious.
Oh, goodness. Okay, everyone. I think that's gonna be it for this section. Apparently, Dane, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
I got 2 things. Just at the end, when they're like, "Wait a minute, it's gonna turn into Sephiroth. This is Cloud's fight. We can't help him. Why?
Yeah.
Why can't you help him?
Because Cloud reverted in character development, and in order to perfectly achieve character development again, he has to do this on his own and realize that he's fighting for family and fighting for friends, and friendship is fucking power. That's why.
Yes, he has to realize what he figured out 2 years earlier.
No, because they can't get in the way because he has to fight for something. Because if they're not there, he can't just fight for himself.
Yeah.
Because the guitar has to do that muted thing. That yes, they will fight.
But also, too, Cloud is fighting his PTSD as well, which is
which, as we all know, you should only fight on your own without any assistance.
Mm-hmm. #daddy issues.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was in that situation, been like, you guys are assholes. Why?
Yeah, you're just watching from an airship which has cannons.
Anyone help me?
I'd at least take 2 materia.
I know, and like Yuffie's carrying all the materia too.
Yeah. You guys literally gambled on the fate of reality on this.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you guys know if I win, it's not just I die or I feel bad. It's the planet gets turned into a space buggy for this crazy half angel. Like, you get that, right? Like, we're just going to be on his fun little cosmic ride. That's the plan. Like, that's what happens.
The other weird thing?
I'm just saying, like, in earlier stages when I needed to fight, like, little dragon guys, you guys are right there. But I don't know. Do they fight dragons in Final Fantasy? I was trying to think of something that sounded plausible.
No, this is Cloud's fight. Please help.
Yeah, please. You were helping so much before. Why is it now that it's harder? Are you not
sure
helping?
If Cloud actually asked for help, he would get help.
There you go.
He doesn't seem like the type to ask.
No, because he's too cool.
I think, it's like fighting Sephiroth and alcoholism. You can't. You have to do it on your own. Don't.
Message.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they need to have a Sephiroth intervention because Cloud keeps trying to do it on his own, and he just needs to know how much he's hurting his family.
My God. The other weird thing is that, so Cloud's riding the motorcycle through the bioluminescent forest.
Yeah.
And the Sephiroth clone-ish people just have like 30 children just stand in the road, and Cloud jumps off the motorcycle, doesn't turn it. The motorcycle keeps going towards the children.
No, he does, and he falls off. He doesn't jump because then because he's on the ground. Then he does attempt to turn it, but then it like skids and does that thing where like it goes on the side.
And then
did he jump off the motorcycle though?
He just accidentally launched it at them.
Yeah.
He was trying to roll it, but
it's the kids just walked out of the way. So like,
yeah, because they're super soldiers
that.
now.
yeah,
And they would have stepped out of the way.
But he didn't know that.
Okay, that's fair.
What's he gonna do? Ask somebody? He's not gonna ask anybody
Move,
anything.
please.
He can't ask for help, and he can't ask people to get out of the road.
Cloud is
all
not
those
very
Into
good
the
at communication.
Bioluminescent Forest is a good band name, or at least a song. I like that.
Listen, you don't turn 3 swords into 1 sword if you're good with your feelings. Okay, it's just a fact.
You just turn
I
your
did
feelings
love
into
his
more
little-
swords.
Yeah, exactly.
His
Then
little
we'll build
armoire of
multiple
weapons that all
swords instead of
combined.
going
was
to
really
therapy.
Okay.
Sword therapy. All right, everybody. We're gonna stop now. This is too much. I think we're all getting a little punch drunk.
At one point, I got distracted and started watching tutorials on how to do pinched harmonics.
Yeah, we know.
We know.
Dane, can I ask, are you on speaker view for Zoom?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's
No,
on the
you're
phone, so
fine.
don't
I
know
just
how to
feel
change
like
it.
you forgot that I'm on gallery view, so I can just see you no matter what.
No, I know that I can be seen.
Okay, that's good then. All right,
Did
everybody.
I do something?
No. I think you enjoy chewing your hands.
Oh yeah, I've been chewing my nails, like in both of these.
Let's all go.
Okay,
to the
so this is a thing I'll
lobby.
pretend like I'm gonna cut, and we'll see what happens.
No, we're gonna leave it all in.
Let's see. It's all in there. Okay, everyone. This will be the third and final time I'm gonna end this segment. And we're gonna go on to our final segment in hour 4 of our discussion of Final Fantasy.
Good Lord.
And we'll be talking about, going to the lobby and just see what's up. Besides that, everyone is so tired, so very, very tired.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I
Hi,
think
everyone.
we have a hard time. It's because we're all Midwesterners. We have a hard time leaving anything.
Mhm.
So I think that's why it takes us a while to get to the next segment.
The coat's on. The car is warming up. Kids are in the back
Yes,
seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shelly, I was
Let me
thinking
just
of
let
going
you
now.
go.
Hey, we got.
Let me
yeah,
get by
we
there
just,
real
We
quick
got to get
there
ahead of the
and,
storm there. Oh no, I hate to see you. Yeah, no, it's been great. This isn't even how I talk. Why am I doing this?
You want to
am I
take a
mocking-
casserole for the road?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. Well,
All right,
getting
what do you
pretty
guys-
late then. We should probably head out. Hi, everybody. I've forgotten
What are you up to?
what a
We're at the
podcast
lot.
is or how to run one. What have you been up to? What have you been up to in the 2 weeks, wink, wink, since we last talked?
I got my flight stick finally for Flight Simulator. I've been wanting to do a nice little real setup with the thrusters and the
Mhm.
whole gear shift.
Has Flight
And,
Simulator been working? You mentioned last time.
I've had
that it was
issues.
broken.
No, I'm giving it another shot. Just you couldn't get flight sticks at all. And ironically, I wasn't even trying to get one, but my buddy in Chicago bought or reserved one in August, and it didn't get to him until this week. And it took so long, he had just given up and ordered another one, and they both came at the same time.
Oh,
So instead of him having to deal with sending it back, I was like, "Oh, I'll buy the other one from you." So it just got delivered. I haven't even opened it yet. But yeah, I have a lot of problems. Like there was some update. I can play the game, but if I try to screen record, it falls apart. So
Oh.
it sucks because it's screwed with my pilot guy character I want to bring back really bad. OBS plays better. I mean, that's how I've always done it anyway. But it just starts to lag out. It's weird. I gotta see a new computer.
So
and,
you're giving this a shot because earlier you'd said you basically just like the controls without the flight stick.
It's great on an Xbox controller. I really just said, sure, I'll buy that from you, A, to help my buddy out, and B, Star Wars is unplayable. Like the Star Wars Squadron, like the controls for it are really wacky. It was designed for this specific flight stick that also happens to be good for Flight Simulator. So I really wanted it to hopefully make Star Wars better, because I also wanted to do pilot guy finds himself inexplicably in the Star Wars universe, because I think that'd be funny. But that plays well.
And a vocal group of the fans all want to make Star Wars better, I guess.
Yeah. But that I think will be cool with the X-Wing. So I'm hoping to give that a try. And just playing a lot of VR, I just got really there's a game called Blade and Sorcery, and you can import any weapon. Like I bet you, like as soon as we're done with this, I made a note to look for Advent Children, because I bet you that 2-prong katana is in this game, because you can just add any weapon you can think of. And
it's really a bad sword. I don't know that much.
It's a dumb sword. It's not a good sword.
Dumb. You really want to make it harder to break the sword. That's been my experience.
That is just Final Fantasy in general. It's like this does. You look at it, you see it. It does not function. But because it's a video game, it's fine.
Like I feel like when we were talking about earlier of the translation of the physical world into the emotional, from the emotional place of the characters and creators. Like I feel like 2 swords in one sword is just like a representation of insecurity. Like it's just like, oh man, I want to be cool. You know what's cool? 2 swords. Yeah, but I only got one hand. So.
I think my favorite sword in films is the actual Excalibur from the Excalibur movie.
So here's the question. Is it one big sheath or is it 2 smaller sheaths?
Did you see
he just had a ringlet in the movie?
Yeah, on Cloud's back. He had it was like a
like a harness almost.
Harness, yeah, a harness that had multiple different slats. There was one for his biggest sword, and then 1 or 2 for smaller swords.
No, I was thinking specifically about the double-bladed katana.
This was interesting too. If you look at his back, it was like this kind of shape, and it draped down that with like a ringlet that held the handle. So it was never actually in a sheath. It just kind of hung there. But it was weird because he had this thing that it was a minor detail to put into a thing where people could practically fly, but it was like this extension to keep the sword angled away from his back so he could reach it easier. Thought it was neat looking.
Is it better than one blade? I just can't imagine.
No, it's not. It's terrible. I can't imagine, because like the blade being strong has to go through the
So in a world of giant swords, though, possibly it's fine. But if anybody had like a fucking rapier, no, you could literally just like stick it in between.
So I guess the only thing that I can think of, and I don't know why why me specifically I am trying to apply but I guess it's kind of like a sword breaker. Like you could sort of see it that way, where if you can catch it between the blades and then twist.
Yeah.
If the blades are strong enough, I guess, but they probably aren't. I don't know. Dane seems very concerned, so
I'm not
that's all that I know.
knowledgeable about swords all that much.
You're not a sword guy?
I took fencing in school, and so I'm the nerd that every time someone says blah 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 fencing, I go, oh, rapiers, and they're like, no, they're talking about real fences, you nerd. And I've been in some embarrassing conversations.
The industrial scaffolding district. Bye.
The only thing I want to mention is so we've been all stuck in our houses for a long time, and I've watched everything. I've just seen it all. And so I've been looking for new things, and a new thing came out, like amazingly. Like they made a movie and it's new and it came out. So I am bad with my money, and I rented a new movie for $20 fucking because I'm
Damn.
just bored. And I rented what is it? Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, starring Krista Wiig and Annie Mumlo and Jamie Doran. So it just came out like yesterday, I think. And it is fun. Like they're the people who wrote Bridesmaids, and it's
Nice.
just, if you've seen any trailers for it, just understand it is a deeply weird movie, and they just show like kind of the conventional parts, but it is just so strange. It really feels more like Wayne's World or something like that than Bridesmaids. Even it's very weird, and I really liked it. So that's all.
I've done a couple of those. I watched Freaky Friday, which was okay.
The 2000s
Oh,
one.
Freaky?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Freaky. Yes. The full title was supposed to be
It's
Freaky
like-
Friday the
'cause
13th.
I'm just saying, if you were paid $20 for Freaky Friday from like 2002, you overpaid, even if you bought it.
Yes. No.
Yeah,
But it's funny
gouged
because it's
there,
very
man.
similar to that plot. I mean, Freaky Friday the 13th was a much better title. But it's fun seeing Vince Vaughn be really extra creepy.
The
Yeah.
plot of that movie just reminded me of like is it Rob Schneider movie?
The hot chick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just reminded me. The premise just reminded me of that, and then immediately I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
It's better than the hot chick. I know,
I would
crazy,
hope
but it is. I mean, that's all everyone's favorite movie. So if you just think about. But no,
Rob
Vince
Schneider.
Vaughn. Yeah, Vince Vaughn's really good in that. I can't remember the female.
I can't remember. I feel bad. I'm blanking on the girl's name, but she's really good too.
Yeah, it's definitely a dual lead movie, which I expected like Vince Vaughn to be in all of it, but
Yeah, like
he
it's
is,
his show.
So's the
Yeah, it splits back and forth. Yeah, I miss movies, man. Like I'm so torn because I'm so excited for Godzilla versus Kong, but it's just weird to sit in my living room. Like that's something that I like that franchise. I've liked the last couple of movies, but I want to see it in IMAX, and I just don't know when I'll be in a movie theater again. They'll get out. Whitmer will come out and say, "Hey, it's safe," and I'm not going to go for like another year after that.
Yeah.
So it's just weird.
Yeah,
it's funny with it.
We definitely need to wait for all the bugs to get out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of I feel like this first vaccine rollout is kind of the Cyberpunk 2077 of our life.
Yeah.
And
there's
we
some
just
patches
kind of
that
wait till
needed.
everything gets figured out.
There's so many diatribes I want to go on, but I just don't want to make this. I'm just so mad at people. If people could have just stayed in there, if the government would have been like, "Hey, we're going to give you 10 grand if you log in your GPS, whatever, and you can prove to us that you didn't leave your apartment for a month or your house or whatever." And if everyone just did that and they had food, if we could have nipped this in the butt a year ago, and we didn't, because people are selfish and it sucks. And that's all I got.
Okay, Dane or Aaron, what's up with you? Anything you want to talk about?
I've just been going through my DVD collection because Shane, my partner, for whatever reason, hasn't seen some like arguably cult classic films.
Mm-hmm.
So recently we have watched American Werewolf in London, which that one I understood why he didn't see. But then also I was telling him about other films, and I was going through, I was like, man, for whatever reason, I really want to watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I've just been thinking about it a whole bunch. And Shane has never seen that movie. So I was
wow.
I immediately bought it, and I sat him down and made him watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So next on the roster is we're going to go through, Shane really also hasn't seen a lot of Stanley Kubrick, so we're going to go through a couple Stanley Kubrick. And also, he's only seen bits and pieces of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And that's one that I cannot let go.
Yeah.
So and Shane doesn't have like the greatest attention span. Like he's not a binger by any means. Like I could sit down and watch like a whole like few seasons of a show in a couple of days. And Shane is just not like that. So it's been taking us a really long time to get through Twin Peaks again. It takes us a really long time to get through this movie list. So that's next on the roster. I'll let you guys know how it goes.
I would just love to see what he thinks about Who Framed. Like, imagine watching that, like as an
Now,
adult.
yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom having not seen that as a kid.
Yeah, right.
I still remember seeing that in the theater.
And he's like a big animation dude too. Like he actively chooses to keep up with like animation and stuff like that. Just never saw like peak animation.
What I think is interesting is I'm looking at the younger generation. I used to get really flustered. Like a girl at work once said to me, which dated me immediately. I felt like the hair was turning gray, but she said, "Oh, I've never seen Jurassic Park. That came out before I was born," which I thought was weird.
What?
Most movies I love came out before I was born.
Yeah, but that's the fault of the parents. Then I feel like my parents are Gen X, so I grew up with all of that stuff that happened in your guys' childhood. But I found out about it after the fact. But still, my parents are like instilled into me pop culture from before.
That's the playing field, though, I'm seeing now, because a lot of movies I saw and kind of experienced alongside my parents too. You know, they took me to see very inappropriate movies. Like I saw Total Recall when I was 8 in the theater, which don't know why they did that, but I'm kind of grateful. But so these classic movies, in a sense, are now on the parent to introduce the kid to. Like if the parents are introducing their children to that, they're never going to, a kid born 10 or 15 years ago isn't going to really see Who Frames Roger Rabbit unless their parents were like, "Hey, watch this movie." And I just think it's going to be interesting seeing a lot of kids grow up. Like of course, these classics are going to be kind of lost to time because if your parents weren't into that, you're not going to be into it.
Yeah, Shane's parents were boomers too, so it's I guess this was like a little bit different, but like they're not that much older than my parents. Like they're maybe like
baby boomers, and I watched that movie when I was younger.
Yeah. So I don't know, but like we definitely, but like Shane still had like an older brother, which is why like how do you not? His older brother.
I think we all don't count, but I just think in 10 or 15 years, the next generation growing up, like that's going to be alien to them unless it shows up streaming.
They're not going to know what alien is until people show them.
I mean, it is interesting because like I don't know, like what are the like culty kind of cool movies that came out like late 90s, and I can only think of a couple, and I can't think of anything that's like as right in that sweet spot of like perfect for like young adults and can still go back and watch as an adult, like Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
culture,
Ghostbusters, like all those things
stopped happening. Like the zeitgeist has shifted away from those type of movies. Like,
I mean, the last one I can think of is Jurassic Park. Matrix is definitely in there, but I can't think of any.
I think
Fellowship of the Ring starts this kind of
like, so if people my age had kids then, or like
that's what I'm saying. Like I think
because I feel like for my generation and younger, like maybe not necessarily movies, but it'd be like YouTube personalities, or it's going to be like television shows. Like SpongeBob was very influential to my generation and younger growing up. We like would talk in SpongeBob references. Like, so I feel like movies to a certain extent, but maybe mostly it would be like cartoons, and
it's just going to become such a blob, I think, especially with kids growing up with the pandemic now. I think you're experiencing it through the lens of social media and YouTube analytical breakdowns. So, like everything's going to be a blur. You're going to experience an episode of SpongeBob and a podcast in Jurassic Park through the same device, so it's like I just think it's interesting. I guess what I was getting at was I used to be taken aback, like, oh my God, you haven't seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit? But now I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense that you wouldn't know that.
But then there's just this whole world of culture that I am just completely unaware of. Like when you hear about, who's famous on YouTube, for instance, there's like legitimately like go into conventions, like millions of people know who this person is, find them like just as like starstruck as I would be if I met like Bill Murray. Like that's how they would react to them, and I just have no idea who this person is.
I feel a failure on a parenting aspect with my daughter who's 6, adores 2 YouTubers, Gamer Girl.
PewDiePie, I'm assuming.
No,
Oh, no.
like a younger
kidding.
version of it. Gamer Girl. I mean, it's very similar material, but Gamer Girl and A for Adley. And A for Adley, that's all she wants to watch when given like YouTube time or anything, and she thinks that could be her friend. You know, like she wants to go meet Adley someday, and I'm like, and that's I'm like
Oh.
torn with that connection of like I'm trying to explain to her like this is like a movie star. You know, she's got 38 million followers. It's a 6-year-old with 30 some million followers, and it's crazy to me. But
That won't mess her up at all. She'll be
well, that's
fine.
Yeah,
the thing where
that's
I'm like
the-
I'm worried about. It's like
Yeah.
trying to explain to her that
There's
this
plenty
is like
of there's plenty of people where like that. It's like people like listening to podcasts because it's like being with your friends. You know,
Yeah.
it's that parasocial
I have that
relationship
same.
that is lost on people. Where like that like divide becomes a connect.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm really good friends with the McElroys, but I'm not at
Yeah,
all.
that one hurts too because the Macklemore's are super cool.
Dane, what's going on with you?
I spent like 2 hours with a snowblower this morning in the driveway, and according to my Fitbit, I walked like 4 miles, and I don't have a long driveway. And I
Uh-oh.
think
Wow.
ultimately it speaks more about my ability and how I use a snowblower versus the quality of the snowblower.
Sure.
It's bad. It's weird how
I feel
the whole
like also
somebody-
though the Fitbit maybe he just miscalculated.
That's awesome.
I do not I as a human cannot compute how this Fitbit said that you spent 4 miles. You essentially did 4 miles of walking back and forth.
It
based on
apparently
steps?
it measures the vibrations in your bones and can recognize your foot connecting the floor.
That's really funny.
Nick
like
is
that.
broken. Just
I was
done.
also holding a very vibrating object and pushing it around.
Oh, well, that could be it.
Well, that's what it
That can
is. So you
happen.
didn't actually go 4 miles. It was just your bones being rattled to the equivalent of 4 miles.
I just like, I don't know what it is about Dane that I find so delightful, but it's basically just like when I asked Dane a question, what I felt like was, this is how Dane opens every therapy session he has with just like, let me tell you about this fucking snowblower.
I'm trying to remember how I opened therapy the other day.
Sorry, I didn't.
Well, now you have a new way. Now next time you have therapy, you can open with your snowblower.
I think like that next time I have therapy, I want to open with Dane's snowblower.
So my friend has this snowblower, right?
Let me tell you about this piece of shit, okay? 4 fucking miles? Are you fucking kidding me?
It rattles your bones. It doesn't even count.
That's got to be causing some joint problems. Am I fucking right? Jesus.
Oh.
Ugh, okay. Let's just.
I got nothing.
This was great. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. But now we should go and never talk to each other ever again.
Yeah,
This is
bye.
it. I think this is over.
Goodbye.
So
that the last
thank
segment?
you to everyone who stuck with us. You must really love Advent Children, and probably as much as Aaron. So that'll wrap up this episode of Pixel Theater. This guy has gone on so long we've renamed it. We'll come up with some. I think it's just going to be Advent Children moving forward, the podcast where we just always talk about Advent Children. We can't do 3 hours anymore. We can't record for 3 hours again. It's just I don't know how to. I literally don't remember a time where I wasn't on a podcast anymore. I feel like if I end it, I'll die. Like I'll just wink out of existence.
I think the
Speed
problem
sequel.
is you allowed me specifically to watch a movie that I have nostalgia about and remember. Next time I just won't watch the movie and it'll be totally fine.
No, this is great.
I was laughing at the significant others popping up. I'm not sure what they were right, but I saw Melena's name pop up and your wife's name pop up, and I don't know if they're asking for us or we've been stuck in a tunnel. But I'm on my phone, so I can see the messenger scrolling, and I'm like, oh, we have been here a long time.
Whoopsie doodle.
One last thing I will say for the room for improvement. Yes, I'm going back to it. I think I would have enjoyed this better had I watched it in the same room as Aaron. I feel like having...
No, you wouldn't have. I took notes. I paused multiple times. I mean, if you had allowed for watching it twice, we would have had fun the second time. But the first time I was all business.
Okay.
So that's going to wrap up this episode of Pixel Theater. We hope you've enjoyed listening. I know I've enjoyed listening to it. I'm still a little trepidatious that as soon as I end this podcast, the world will end. But this is the risks we take when you're podcasting. If you like the episode, rate, review, subscribe on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You can check us out on Twitter. You can check us out on Facebook. Just search for Pixel Theater. There might be one or two Twitter handles, but we're the one who's still tweeting. I think the other one is long ago given up. They're just
also
Twitters.
Check us out on YouTube. Our channel is Technical Difficulties Productions.
If you enjoy the visual mediums, you should check us out there. Dane adds some fun little snippets into it and makes it all that much more appealing.
I did want to mention, so this would have been 2 episodes ago now, on the Need for Speed episode, where you both are rating it out of Mustangs. There was a really nice little bit where Dane added in some car revving up to the Mustangs, and then Ron had rated it 4 out of 10 Mustangs, but then added a couple extra Mustangs, and Dane put actual horses behind that after the additional Mustangs were added. It was very silly, and
I'm glad you picked up on that, and I'm glad you enjoyed that.
It was really good, and there was there was a little horse whinny, and it was like, this is great. So that's the only quality content you can get if you go on our YouTube and watch it.
That's right.
I feel like the only point of our video podcast or podcast in general is just as a base for Dane's visual collage of of silliness that's happening. So as everyone in the world, we are just a medium through Dane's art that can be brought forth. Much like Sephiroth is just a vehicle for Genova.
We're not
I
real
now
people.
know that.
We're actually just VTubers created by Dane.
There it is.
No, don't.
So Dane's gonna put us in the cornfield now, and we're gonna head out. But thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you back here next time. I don't even know what we're gonna talk about next. I assume it's just probably there's another Final Fantasy movie. They made a 15. Maybe we should just do that.
We should probably watch Last Order Final Fantasy VII for the pre-context. That one's extra anime, but actually in an anime art style, so maybe that'll be up.
Did we fuck up by not just making a Final Fantasy podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that one because I don't know anything, so it means I wouldn't have to do anything for it or be a part of it. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Again, this is like the 8th time. This is going to be a nightmare to cut. Ron's just waving bye. We will see you back here next time. Have a lovely evening. Have a safe tomorrow. Have a happy new year, depending on when you're listening to this. We'll see you later. Bye.
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 This is a technical difficulties production.